would you like to get to next caller?
Yeah, looks like we have Victoria.
Victoria, you are on with Ethan and Jenna. How are you?
Hi.
Hey, I've been just staring at. I've watched your show for like an hour. I'm like, should I call? Shouldn't I call? Should I call? And then I'm like, okay, I'll do it.
Nice.
I'm like super nervous, but I'm here.
Is this the Vicky I personally know, like that we've met up?
Yes.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. I mean, I thought I'd bring in a couple of perspectives first because I work in actually work in a mental health facility. It's all women, so yeah, and around this time we actually get like a big influx of people because holidays are very hard for people with mental illness because they have that broken relationship with their families or they had family trauma, and then that kind of time of year reminds them of that time. They come in, a lot of them with like PTSD and drug addiction and other things around this time.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's always a hard time of year, and even for us staff because we have to take care of them.
Right. I was reading before the show that December has the lowest suicide rate. Do you know if that's accurate?
The lowest, I heard it was the highest suicide rate.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Those are conflicting.
Which month has the highest suicide rate? So, do you work more hours during the holiday season then?
I mean, I have a set of hours and I could always pick up hours. I'm not obligated, but they always ask me, like even now every day, it's like, do you want to work more hours? We're short this time. We're short that time. I'm like, no, I'm good.
Well, how do you handle the holidays?
It's always hard.
I'm curious about you.
I'm sorry?
I'm curious about you and your holidays and what you're doing and how you're preparing.
I don't know. I mean, yes, family. I don't know how to answer that.
Well, are you traveling or are you going to be able to see family? Are you close with them? Is it going to be, is this something you're looking forward to or dreading?
Oh yeah, and then my personal experience, it's always hard during the holidays, especially this year. We lost 2 family members on my husband's side. So this is just going to be very difficult on his end. This year, my parents are separated and I have in-laws and I have a little baby. So I'm going to 3 different households every holiday, and it's always tiring. I'm always dreading it.
Oh.
Especially if that family separation. And I had a talk with one of my in-laws last year. I'm like, hey, can we get somewhere together, all of us?
Right.
Like it's a huge group because it's always so hard going to 3 different places. Mm-hmm. And then always that obligation of getting gifts for everyone. I even told everyone this year, I'm like, I don't think I'll be able to get gifts for you guys because of, issues with bills, and we had basements going with us to different stores. So it's always so hard. And then having that big fallout with my father because, political reasons and other reasons, it's always hard.
Yeah.
And real quick, Vicky, if I remember correctly, you're either agnostic or atheist. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, it really does not get in the way.
That's good.
During the holidays at all. Like I said, like the big thing this year is the political issues because my father, he was always like an avid, Democrat, and he always supported the Democratic Party. Even like when Trump got elected, he's like, oh my God, I can't believe he got elected. I can't believe it. Like he was out of shock and disbelief, And then this year, he's like, oh, he's killing it. He's doing so well. And he would even argue with us if we vote for him and just all this stuff to the point where, we had a yelling match. And I'm like, you know what? If you're going to talk to me this way, I'm just going to hang up. Don't talk to me. Leave me alone. And I don't even know how to talk to him anymore.
Have you tried, like, for instance, during the holidays, say, hey, can we not get in? Can we not get into this topic, or can we just enjoy each other's company as opposed to fighting over politics?
Oh yeah, I mean, I try, but that could only get so far, and eventually it comes back to that. Even this year during Thanksgiving, which kind of made me laugh. He said, I'm not going to see you for Thanksgiving. I'm going to go to Vegas. And I told him, like, what about Corona? Like, are you really going to expose us? Because, my sister has an immune issue. Her boyfriend has an immune issue. My husband has an immune issue. And we have a little baby. I'm like, really going to put us at risk? Like, what are you doing? And he's like, I don't care about Corona right now. I just care that there might be a civil war. I'm like, what? Are you serious? And like, so it's just that point where like you can't even reason with him.
I wonder if that would be a point to set a boundary.
Yes, exactly. And I even told my family, I'm like, I'm not going to see him if he's going to do that, because that just puts all of us at risk.
Right. Yeah.
Because when it's that serious, that's the only way sometimes to make your position clear that you're concerned.
Right. And
you're serious. Because otherwise, when you say things like that and then like there's no action that follows, then they're like, oh, they're fine. They're over it already. See?
Vicky.
Right.
By the way, you're getting love from people in the comments section right now. Just so you know.
Oh, well, that's nice.
I wonder also, another thing, you had mentioned that you go to 3 different places for each holiday. I wonder if you've tried or mentioned splitting up the holidays. Like when me and my partner were starting out, like I would go to, my family for Thanksgiving and his family for Christmas, or something like that. I wonder if that's a possibility.
I mean, we have considered it, and we're not really invested in celebrating this year anyway.
Okay.
With everything going on. But it's also difficult, like I said, in my in-law side. Lost 2 family members, and this will be like the first holidays without them. So it kind of felt like an obligation to say we should at very least go to this one, and my mom. That's also very difficult, especially with everybody that's lost family members this year.
Right.
For whatever reason, it's going to be difficult for the first year without them, and I was very close to my father-in-law, so that's always difficult.
Yeah.
I remember seeing you post that on Facebook, and it just I never know. You would think dealing with death, you learn more what to say to people, and you don't. I mean, I feel like, yes, I've learned some things, but it's so hard to find the words, Vicky. And all I wanted to do is just come give you a big hug and say I'm sorry.
Same. Seems like the more, and so far, the more experience that I have with death, the harder it is to say anything about it. It's like there's less to say. It's like the words are taken away. It's just so sad. It's just so.
Exactly. And me dealing with people that are sad and depressed, every single day at work, it's draining. And, I would think I would know how to deal with it in my own life. And it's like, you really don't.
So
you can't really,
actually,
self-reflect sometimes.
So how do you, because at times people's personalities can be contagious. How do you deal with your own mental health when you're around that all the time? And does it, for instance, if you're around people with a lot of anxiety or depression, does it weigh on you and impact you, or are you able to separate it?
Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. Like when I am able to handle it, you just kind of have to, I don't know how to word it. Like, separate yourself from the situation. Like, don't take it personally. Like, you're not the one that hurt them. You're not here to cure them. You're here to give them tools to help them.
And also, I was just going to say, and also when somebody is having that fight with you, it's usually a problem with them, not a problem with you. And so that's something that you can remind yourself of to make it a little easier to put that distance that you're talking about. Just a side note.
Yes, that's correct. But like you said, like those standards as you were talking about earlier, like I'm not going to be treated a certain way. I'm going to respect myself enough to say, no, that's not okay. Even if you are, my family member, I'm not going to be treated this way. And until you find that respect, and I'm not going to engage, because I value myself more than I've always you know, even as a kid, I didn't have this much self-respect, but now I do. I have to remind myself that like I do not deserve that treatment.
No.
And remember also that they don't necessarily have that ability if they're not doing it. They might not have the skills that you've developed yet. And so that kind of makes it easier for me to be more patient with them, you know, because they don't know how to talk to themselves any nicer than they're talking to me. Usually.
Yeah, that's right. So, I mean, as far as dealing with patients, you know, just a couple of things to remind them is like, what happened to you isn't your fault, but you are responsible for what's going to happen to you now.
Right.
So you have that kind of responsibility to take control of your life. And whoever hurt you isn't here anymore.
Yeah.
It's always hard. It's always hard because you kind of get that, I don't know how to say it, that empathy feeling, like you feel their pain, you take in some of that pain and some of that anxiety and some of that depression into yourself without meaning to. Like I try to distance myself, but it's always hard.
Right.
But you just do the best you can. Like just give them support, show them that somebody cares, that somebody supports them, that somebody thinks that they're worth it, that they're worth having a life.
And those are the people worth pushing to go find.
Mm-hmm. Some of those people don't even know kindness. They're just showing them that kindness. It makes a big difference.
Yeah.
I love what I do because of that. Just showing them that, hey, there's somebody here that thinks they're worth it, that doesn't think you're a piece of crap like your family's been telling you. Like, it makes it worthwhile.
You know, I wish I would have actually consulted with you. I wish I would have known that that you worked for mental health, because when I went through my incident a couple months back, I made the poor choice because I didn't know better. So I just went to the ER, and that's where everything went to shit. I wish I would have talked to you and asked for a suggestion on where I should go when it's, you know, real late and I'm struggling and I was clearly in need. But that's real quick. So I went to the emergency room, and they, within a few seconds of me opening my mouth, they like locked me down and forced me to this facility. Do you want to know how much the bill is after insurance? $5,000 for 2.5 days. It forced in a place that I didn't choose to go to. And that's after insurance. How messed up is that?
Don't get me started on insurance.
All the time. All the time. The insurance thing is always an issue. I'm always fighting with them that they're not covering a medication, or saying, all right, we have two issues in our facility. Either, hey, they're not sick enough to be there, so you got to kick them out. Even though they're struggling, they're still dealing with anxiety, they still need skills. You're not sick enough. You shouldn't be there. Or are you too sick? We recommend that you send them inpatient.
I wonder how do you find that out, whether someone is sick enough? Because I went to rehab and I wasn't sick enough to get the full month. I was only sick enough to get the 2 weeks. Like, how do you measure that? I missed out on 2 weeks of a program because I wasn't sick enough.
I really don't know what their standards are. Just if you're doing well, if you're not acting out, all these things, and insurance is like, you're fine.
So if you're compliant?
That happens. It's just ridiculous. Or they say, oh, you need a lower level of care. You know, we'll do partial hospitalization, but we won't do residential. Which is ridiculous. Like, these people need help. Just because they don't always show it outwardly, or there's no like documentation of it or whatever, doesn't mean that they don't need help. And to answer your question, Ethan, I would definitely recommend seeking a therapist or counselor first before you go to the ER. Unless you're in like some kind of emotional crisis where you're at risk to yourself, definitely seek a therapist or a counselor first.
Yeah, I mean, going forward, I would do that now. I actually got to follow up with this therapist again, but it was a dire situation. It was not something in that moment that just talking to someone would have fixed. My brain was just all that was there was like suicidal ideation, like, and anxiety. So at that moment, talking to someone was just not an option. Like I needed something. I needed something. Don't know what, but something.
No, I mean, at that point, you made the right choice. You went to the ER. Unfortunately, that's always a slippery slope because you are at risk for being locked up and institutionalized. And I've had to do that to a couple of people, well, some people, because of that, because they're too sick to be there, because they're at immediate risk to themselves, because they've already tried something or are at high risk for trying something, or insurance cut. They're not paying for any more days, and they're too sick to go home, or they're at risk for themselves. Right. And I have to make that hard decision at least once a week, and it's always difficult. But at that moment, you did make the right choice, even though it cost you a lot of money.
And I would argue it cost me some trauma too, the way I was locked away with no human interaction and having a psychiatrist yell at you. Yeah, not an ideal situation.
You're correct. Mental health institutions, they get like the end of funding. They don't really get paid well. Mental health isn't getting enough funding. Mental health, we don't have enough doctors. We don't have enough therapists. We don't have enough counselors at schools, and kids are getting suicidal. It's a hot mess.
It's not a very good way.
Those reforms.
It's not a very good way to encourage, reform. It's not a very good way to encourage focusing and repairing mental health if you're not putting any money into it, right? You're putting all your money into the military.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. Money does need to go into mental health. Just people don't take it seriously. There's some cultures that don't believe that mental health issues exist. I had a teenager patient that I had who's dealing with eating disorder and who's dealing with depression. And her mom, being of like a very religious background, told them, like, you're fine. The reason that you're having these issues is because you're not praying enough. It's because you're not reading the Bible and all these stuff. I'm like, no, that's not how it works. And that's very sad because I see those issues every day. Like, you don't see it. People are walking around. They're not as apparent as someone like with a physical disability or with diabetes or something, but it's very, very real.
Hopefully we can get some links of the Secular Therapy Project and Recovering from Religion in the chat for people, because that is something that we want to avoid, is people having to be forced to pray.
Yes, absolutely. You know what? I have a weekly template I use for our shows. I'm going to update it to include seculartherapy.org and Recovering from Religion right now.
Secular Therapy Project. Yeah, that's awesome. Isn't it?
Yeah, it's seculartherapy.org, isn't it?
That's a good question.
Yeah, that's the
okay.
list. Okay, cool.
Okay, good. So I'll make sure. Awesome. Thank you so much for calling and telling us all this.
Oh yeah, anytime if you guys want to reach out, message me, whatever. It was great talking to you guys. It was really awesome.
Good.
Thanks. Nice talking to you, Victoria.
I hope you have a safe holiday.
All right, thanks so much.
Talk to you later.
Take care, you guys.
You too.
Okay, bye.